Sorry. Hey, we're
Recording
online.
Recording in progress. We're recording.
We're recording. We're sending notes. We're sending personal podcasts to our descendants.
We need to make you a coat of arms.
Yeah, you didn't see it because this is a podcast, but I touched my own invisible shoulders with an invisible sword.
That's great. I've got tons of invisible swords. They're all lodged in my belly from all of my experiences through my life. I'm just full of invisible swords. I'm invisible bleeding and invisible dying and invisible regretting every invisible decision I've ever invisible made.
Which gets us to our point that this we live in a simulation, and my personality has been constructed from the podcasts of the ancient Egyptians, who, their civilization did have electricity and the internet and flowing water, but then they fell down, and AI collected information about them and spawned this civilization.
That's why that would explain a lot. If I were talking to an algorithm of a person who once existed, it would explain a lot. Because you don't talk like a person. You talk more like an idea of a person. You know, what's the line from? Did you watch True Detective, the first season, where he's like, "This is like someone's memory of a town, and the memory is fading." Like that's how I feel when I talk to you.
It's the best thing I've ever.
I often tell. So now I have 20-year-olds who are my students who I just have to listen to everything that I fucking say to them. And so like I would say a good 99% of what I give them is just my counsel from all of my experience from having been in it for the last 30 years.
Right, yeah.
But there's like 1% of it is me being like, just like airing my grievances. And they're like, oh, you're so crazy. And I'm like, it's going to be like that. This is what it's going to be like for you. Just get used to it.
They're like,
you're really talented.
That's a grumpy old man.
Yeah.
This is all of your futures, you fucking idiots.
Don't
try to become an actor. AI is going to take this over anyway.
I wish I could be one of my students, just like looking at me, like this is what's left, you know, like this is what we've got now, and so I'm just trying to give advice. You know, they do scene work, and I'm like, okay, what do you think about your objective? By the way, you're handsome, but that doesn't matter, and you should go to school for like business management.
So let me ask you something. Do you feel like, you know how they say things are just the act of being observed makes things behave differently?
Seabass explained that to me a couple of years ago. He was like, there's a certain thing where just by being observed, it changes its nature. But of course, he was Seabass about it, so I didn't understand what the fuck he was saying.
Yeah, I don't know anything deeper than that because that's like high level philosophy shit for me. But apparently, it's a real thing.
Well, so you talk a little. Tell me what is that? Where does that come from?
I don't. I'd have to research it. It's something that I'll do some Googling while I talk about it. But the question I was going to ask was, now that we've hit the record button, do you feel like does the act of electronic observation or being recorded, does that change how you behave?
So yeah, obviously the act of being observed makes me self-conscious in some way, right? Talking while being observed, potentially, it's all theoretical at this point because you're just recording our thing. But I kind of already feel like we're doing a podcast, and I kind of feel like this would be a really interesting first episode. So if you publish this somewhere, I wouldn't have a problem with that. But I don't feel, at least for right now, I have the sensation I feel like we're just having our conversation. And if we were to put this somewhere where other people could hear it, I would be okay with that. I don't feel like I'm performing.
Interesting. I think that I do feel a little bit like I'm performing, and like I do feel like something kind of changed, you know. And maybe it's just the intention of being like, all right, we're putting this out into the universe, and there might be a third party at some point, because like, I don't know, I guess it's, yeah, I guess
I tell you what, let me amend what I said.
okay.
I don't feel like it's exactly the same. I just feel like if there were a third party, I feel ready for that in this moment, for this conversation. So
That's
it's not the same thing as us just having a conversation, but I don't feel like, oh no, now I gotta like change something. If something is changed, it's changed on its own, and I'm sort of ready for that. Hey, listen, ask me tomorrow, and I'll be like, oh no, don't publish that because I sound like an idiot. But
right.
for now, I'm at peace with that.
I think that's like a really great mentality, like to go into an audition with. But I don't have like, do you like? Well, I guess did you feel that when you were auditioning?
Oh my God.
Or
Auditioning
no?
was auditioning for me was like the absolute opposite of that. Every time I went to
Exactly.
audition for something, I felt super self-conscious. And I made the mistake of sharing that with my agent, and then they dropped me. This is like
What?
15 years ago. I went out for the big movies. I never got the big movies. And then I go out for smaller things, and sometimes I would book those. Um, and I always wanted to be older, and they always wanted me to be a kid. I was, whenever I would call my agent, the person who would answer wouldn't be her, it would be someone answering her because they're a very fancy, big agency. And so when I'd call, the person who answered would just say, children's. And I'd be
What?
like, well, I'm an old ancient actor person. And
Wait,
you know,
wait. How old were you when you got the
when I was, I guess, 17.
Wow.
And then a couple of years later, they sent me to an audition at a casting house called Casting House. This was in Tribeca. In
What?
Tribeca, I went to Casting House and I read for a guy named, and he apparently was right on the precipice of starting his own management company. He had been a casting director.
Okay.
And so I read whatever thing for him. And before I left, he grabbed me and he was like, okay, I want to represent you. And I was like, wow, I got all this other stuff going on. He's like, no, I'll help you get out of that. So he helped me get out of my stuff with the other people. And then
Okay.
he was my new manager. And then he got me an interview somehow with a fancy big agency. And they gave me some 1-page copy to read. And they said, memorize this. So I went out in the hall by the elevators and I memorized it. And I went back in and I read it for them. And they were like, all right, we'll work with you. Then they
Gee.
sent me on a couple of auditions and I booked a lot of them. And then they signed me.
Wow.
And then, that was, I had a 3-year contract. And that's when I was going out for all the big things. After the 3 years was over, they still freelanced with me a little bit. And then they invited me to finally go and meet the adult division. When I went to meet the adult division people, I told them about because they asked me, like, what is your experience like auditioning?
And you answered honestly.
And I answered honestly. And they were like, all right, well, we don't need that. So they let me go.
That is really, because wow, I feel like that is something like now you could answer on. You would hope that you could answer honestly. And people are like, all right, well, that's just, auditions are hard. But
well, if I had it to do today, which it's crazy to think about because it's more than 15 years later, I probably would bring some measure of honesty, but I would also have other things to say.
You'd craft it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I told them, I was like, it's really hard because auditions, like, I'm really nervous. And by the time I even get in the room to read the thing, I'm already so nervous that I would so see through with them. They're like, all right, that's not going to make us any money.
Right. Yeah.
And they drop me like a hot potato.
Yeah.
All of the things that I've done over the last 8 years have come from people calling me who know me from this thing or that thing, saying, hey, this is the thing I'm working on, and this is what I can pay you, and this is when it would shoot, and are you interested?
Are there people in your class that are like, they're like, after college, I'm really gonna, well, I mean, I guess everyone getting an acting degree at in your program, or?
Well, in the program where I was a student, it's liberal arts, and I'm teaching intro classes, so no.
So no, okay.
In the program that I'm teaching where I didn't go to school, it's a BFA program, so yes.
Okay, so yeah, all right. So there's definitely ones where you're like, dude, just like, have you that you're like, hey man, you should save the money. Like, do you genuinely feel that way?
Well, but no, but because it's not, because you never know. Because you never know. It could be, you look at a person, you're like, okay, I'm going to put you in this corner of my imagination. I'm going to put you in this compartment. And then they just land some fucking Netflix series.
Right.
You never know. You
never know. Yeah, that's true. It's very true.
Whereas I have one student who told me that he had an acting teacher who was very unkind to him. And he talked to me one day, we did, because I do my check-ins at the beginning of every class. And this kid was telling me that he was working on a thing with an acting coach, and the acting coach told him, you will never be anything. What's happening? Who are you talking to? I'm talking to Guy, and we're making a fucking podcast. We're working on our
Wait, hey Blondie, welcome to our podcast. And also whoever is 4 people away from me on the phone.
One of my students in one of his check-ins, because we do check-ins every class. We start every class with a check-in. Everyone sits in a circle and we just check in. That makes a huge difference, by the way. So during one of our check-ins, he shared with me and the rest of his class, that some acting coach of his told him that he has no future. And he said, well, I'll get better. So fucked up. He said, I'll work hard and I'll get better. And apparently this dude told him, no, you're like a one-legged man in a race.
Wow. Jesus Christ. Holy shit.
He's a person, he's a person.
Yeah.
Had someone who was just horrifyingly horrible to him.
Like, what kind of check-in do you do?
I hope you're very artful in your edits in this, because some of this is dog shit.
Oh yeah.
So we do in the check-ins. Well, I'll speak for what I do, and I 100% got this idea from my fiance. She's been doing this for years, but what I do, which I imagine is very similar to what she does, we circle up and we talk for a few minutes before. So it's like class. And if you were asked to just get up and start doing scene work, it'd be a little bit ridiculous, because you enter the room and you bring in your socialized self or whatever. And so you need to do a warm. So before I do a warm up, first I do a check-in. We all sit in a circle and we talk about, how was your week? You can say something about the class, or you can say something about anything about your week. You just kind of check in, and you can say any old thing. And so my Tuesday students, my regular intro students, they love it, and I administered my final with them, which was basically, we just got together and I said, we're not going to do a check-in. You all are going to get up and do your scenes. I'll give you some feedback, and then when we're done, if there's time, we'll do a check out. And there was time, and we did. And for their checkout, every single one of them basically expressed their gratitude for the class, how amazing the impact that the class had on their lives, how it helped them with their anxiety, or with their coming out of their shell, or how they looked forward to the class. It was the best class. It was the best
That's
class.
amazing.
It was crazy. It was unreal. Just listen to some. I don't know. We recorded something. That's a round of applause for recording.
Good job,
something.
us. We have officially donated our personalities to the AI. All right, peace and love.
Damos un like, damos un suscríbete, porque vamos a seguir y ahora solo estamos averiguando cómo funcione esta cosa, pero les prometemos que vamos a seguir.
I have no idea what you said, but I laughed because you made yourself laugh in another language. That's pretty awesome.